All right, we're going to be watching this video on doublespeak. Doublespeak is a way of lying or, well, mainly lying to you about the reality of what's going on. And this is something that is used by the bankers, by the World Health Organization, by politicians, by hedge funds, by, I already said banks. Uh, yeah, it's just deceit for the sake of power. That's what they're doing, to try and trick you into doing something that will negatively affect you. Uh, let's see what this is. Now, I definitely would recommend, if you haven't read it, read the book 1984. It's something I'm gonna read here on stream, so follow me at Coyote Thunder. Well, Coyote underscore Thunder. Let's go.
In the winter of 1847, George Donner, the co-leader of a California-bound group of American settlers, engaged in intraspecies protein reallocation in order to maintain
Intra.
metabolic integrity. How-
Okay, I wanna break that down. Intraspecies. So intra, like intrastate, is within the state. Intra-species is within the same species. So they told you the truth. And protein reallocation, well, meat is a form of protein, is it not? So within our species, protein and then reallocation, so the protein's over there, I'm going to reallocate it by moving it somewhere else. How are you going to
Species
eat it yourself? How's it going to enter you? How are you going to get that protein without eating it? Cannibalism. That's fucking terrible. That's a
protein
truth to
reallocation
your
in order
face,
to maintain
but it
metabolic
sounds
integrity.
it's too big of
However, his failure
words
to
that
fulfill
people need to
caloric
listen to.
obligations in a timely manner rendered him unviable. This video is about doublespeak, what William Lutz, author of the book titled Double
From revenue enhancement to terminal living, how government, businesses, advertisers, and others use language to deceive you. I'm going to read this book. We should read it together.
Speak defines as
Doublespeak is language designed to evade responsibility, make the unpleasant appear pleasant, the unattractive appear attractive. Basically, it's language designed to mislead while pretending not to.
And I'll be honest with you, part of that as well, and I'll be honest with you, the synagogue of Satan is responsible for this. They have created many horrible things, such as communism, feminism, and LGBT. The whole way that they interact is that they will tell you this through deceptive speech and then not allow any sort of context or any sort of explanation to happen beyond it. It's their form of control. So long as they can stifle you and prevent you from questioning them, then they can continue to maintain power. And we can't allow that.
What line of work are you in?
Waste management consultant.
let's say, for example, the person whose treacherous mountain climb my energy bar company sponsored cannibalized his climbing partner. It would be better for me to say something that technically communicates this information, but doesn't sound as terrible. Lutz says there are at least 4 kinds of doublespeak. Protein reallocation instead of
Oh,
cannibalism,
cannibalism.
and Tony Soprano's creative move to replace
Intraspecies.
mobster would probably fall under the 4th kind of doublespeak, which is inflated language that is designed to make the simple seem complex or to give an air of importance to people, things, or situations.
I don't know if that tape is working. You ate 3 desserts tonight.
Forbearance is the watchword. That triumvirate of Twinkies merely overwhelmed my resolve.
The concept of
Mm.
doublespeak stems from George Orwell's
Gonna read this as
1984.
well.
In the book, doublethink is a key concept. To know and not to know, to be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies. Doublespeak, though, is rarely about deliberately lying. For example, in January
It is deliberately
2015,
lying.
Sid Miller became the Agriculture Commissioner of the state with the
So when I say deliberately lying, it's not to say an untruth. It's to tell you the truth in a method that you will not see it as bad. That is the deliberate lie. That is the deceit in which they use this double speech on you. And again, that is corporations, hedge funds, banks, politicians, and the media, all of which are influenced by the synagogue of Satan at the top. right? Because the synagogue of Satan is the bankers, is the hedge funds, uh, and through that, with that money, control corporations. Through those corporations that then give money or donations or lobbying to politicians, control them that way. They also own the advertising media. So their main three banks, hedge funds, and advertisements allow them to control corporations, and through corporations, control politicians through lobbying. That's further layers of which they hide themselves.
Fifth fattest high schoolers in the country, Texas. So, that same year, along with announcing a plan to combat obesity, he announced updates to the school nutrition policy in Texas, which included rolling back a ban on the use of deep fryers and allowing the sale of low calorie beverages in Texas schools. By low calorie beverages, he means sodas. I guess a soda is technically lower calorie than, say, a meal, but I doubt Coca Cola is what you're expecting if you ask for a low calorie beverage at a
Never.
restaurant.
It's
Why do you have so
sugar.
many bowling balls?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Marge. So long.
So, doublespeak becomes useful obviously when you are obligated to communicate something but are unable to straight up lie, yet communicating the truth bluntly or as clear as possible doesn't have the listener perceive the information in a way that you would like. For example, when being asked about your current position during a job interview, you might think it would sound better to say, I'm currently economically inactive due to being offered an early retirement opportunity as a result of my previous employer's human resource redundancy elimination initiative.
So let's go with this as well, right? So currently, I'm not working. I used to work for a hedge fund itself, an investment institution. I won't say who they are because I don't want, I don't know. I would say they're fine, but I understand that they're also a part of that same industry in which is designed to steal from all of you, uh, consolidate power into those corporations, which is really just business communism, which is why I hate corporatism. Capitalism is great, but it's been perverted to become corporatism, which again is business communism. I, on the other hand, no longer am employed through them as I have taken a sabbatical for this time. So I left. That's no lie. I didn't say I quit, because that's what I did. I quit working for them. I said I took a sabbatical, which means I'm just taking some time off. How long that time is, who knows? But hey, it sounds better than, yeah, I quit that job. No, it's like I took a sabbatical to pursue other endeavors. There we go. Not to say, oh, I quit my job because I'm tired of working for banks to and hedge funds to make them more money. Uh,
Instead of, I'm unemployed because the company was firing people and I got fired. Edward Sapir, in his essay The Status of Linguistics as a Science, says language is a guide to social reality.
hmm
Human beings do not live in the objective world alone, but are very much at the mercy of the particular language which has become the medium of expression for their society.
Oh, that very much makes sense with what you hear of the LGBT and the feminist movement, specifically in the aspect of trans woman or trans man, which they understand that at this point, as far as the social construct goes, man and woman is considered gender ideology. So what they started doing now is once you got used to trans man, trans woman, oh, it's now trans female, but male and female are the sexes of humanity. That's it. There is no other. You cannot transition from male to female or from female to male. It's impossible. But again, more deceptive speech, and it's just done a little bit at a time. It's like that one saying, give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
A lot of times we don't want information communicated to us objectively and unembellished. Euphemisms like passed away instead of died or big boned for fat are words or phrases that are usually used to avoid a
Oh, I'm
distasteful
fat. Look at
reality.
this.
William Lutz says that this is the first type of doublespeak.
You see, I don't like
Mm.
euphemisms. I don't like language that reflects fear and conceals the truth. Americans can't really handle
Concealing
the
the
truth,
truth.
so they invent soft language to protect themselves. And it gets worse with every generation. Sometime during
It
my
does.
lifetime, toilet paper became
Especially
bathroom
with
tissue.
politically correct. Yes.
Used cars became previously owned transportation, and constipation became occasional irregularity. Poor people used to live in slums. Now, the economically disadvantaged
Or
occupy
ghettos.
substandard housing in the inner cities. They don't have a negative cash flow position. They're broke.
Calling an economic recession a period of accelerated negative growth can be annoying, but some
But here
forms of
that growth,
doublespeak are
growth
just
should be up,
deceitful.
right?
In Chapter 2, under the section The Doublespeak of Graphs, Lutz gives a dated but clear visual example of doublespeak.
Now here is another chart. Their tax cut, so-called, is the dotted line.
Where's the money?
Ours is the
What
solid line.
from what to what?
As you can see, our tax cut keeps on going down and then stays down permanently. This red space between the two lines is the tax money that will remain in your pockets.
This is definitely another way that they go about it, by altering the state of graphs, because it doesn't tell you from what dollar to what dollar, or from how much time, right? It could be 1982 to 19, so that's 4 years, right? Over the course of those 4 years, we're going from this to this. So that we have the time, but we don't have the X factor of the dollar value. So who knows how much this is? It could be like $3.
If our bill passes,
Lutz goes on to point out that there are no numbers on this chart, which means that you have no perspective to evaluate it with. When you make the dollar scale from $0 to $2,500 rather than the awkward $2,150 to $2,400,
So like $400. I mean, not bad. It does kind of peter out, but if it could continue to go down.
it appears much less impressive. This kind of graphical doublespeak also appears elsewhere, used by the pharmaceutical industry for the heart-protecting, cholesterol-lowering wonder drug statin.
Mind you, this is a reality. This is a fact. You can look it up yourself if you want. Matter of fact, we'll look it up after this. But Charles Schwab of the World Economic Forum has been quoted saying that a cured patient is a lost customer. They don't want to cure you. They want to prolong your suffering by managing symptoms so they can continue to make money. And here are examples. I'm assuming.
Here's the ad in which you
Yes.
see that Lipitor reduced the coronary events and risk for heart disease by 36%. So this was a really important study, the one that ultimately drove Lipitor to generate over $100 billion in revenue. So I'm going to show you the actual data from the study, and it's right here. But here are the actual data from this study. And somewhere in here is a 36%.
Okay, so because I worked in that finance industry, I can kind of maybe understand this one. So here is what they mean, right? They would mean the Astravain versus the placebo had so it's one versus the other, not overall. So Astravain had a 36% increase over the placebo effect, which was over doing nothing. But they just use this 36% reduction.
When you compare placebo with atorvastatin, the Lipitor. So if you look at survival, you see they're basically identical. No difference in mortality benefit. You see that tiny sliver of a difference between the red and the blue bars? That is a 36% reduction. Yes. This is the wonder drug effect. This is the effect that propelled Lipitor to generate over $100 billion in revenue. How can that be a 36% reduction in risk? When you calculate it and you look at the data, the actual difference is 1.1%. This is where you do some statistical hijinks. You take that 1.1% difference between the groups, then you have the difference between placebo and 100. If you're not following me, it doesn't matter, because it's silly.
It's all gobbledygook.
It's
so deceitful language, lying to your face.
By 3, what do you get? You get 36. Okay, that's 36%. And that's why they say there is a 36% reduction. And so if you have truth in advertising, I think the 1% should actually be in the ad. Lipitor reduces heart attack by 1%. Okay.
And now I'm also taking Lipitor.
By the way, if you're health conscious and want to limit your sugars, you might like to know that there are 56 different names for sugars.
Ooh, look at this. Barley malt, refined high fructose corn syrup, well, refined fructose syrup, rice malt, ethyl maltitol, fructose, malt, cane juice, raw sugar, powdered sugar, grape sugar, beet sugar, dextrin, fruit juice concentrate, high fructose corn syrup, because that sounds bad. Now, honey is good, but too much honey is bad.
Don't like the way just sugar sounds? How about organic evaporated cane juice? A completely natural sweetener.
Delicious.
This kind of rebranding of words to make people react differently to them is all over the place.
Frank Luntz doesn't do issues. He does language around issues. He figures out what words will best sell an issue.
In Frank Luntz's book, Words That Work, he explains the importance of using the right word or phrase to evoke the right response from the listener.
Always emotional
He
response,
says, it's
too.
not what you say, it's what they hear.
Focus on those words that cause people to change their minds, change their behavior, even change their attitudes.
For example, the gambling industry became the gaming industry
Ah.
and completely changed its perception, despite nothing about the industry actually changing. As Luntz says in the book, gambling looks like what an old man with a crumpled racing form does at the track, or feels like the services provided by some seedy back alley bookie in some smoke-filled room. Gaming is what families do together at the Hollywood-themed MGM Grand, New York, New York, or one of the other family-friendly resorts in Las Vegas. Gambling is a vice. Gaming is a choice. He begins
Like
his
gotcha
book with something
games.
similar to a focus group. He talks to members of the target
Gotcha.
market and runs words or phrases by them to see what they like and dislike.
You're going to use these to register whether you agree or disagree, whether you believe or disbelieve. The dials go from 0 to 100. Climbing, 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 changing fuels.
One of his most significant political works has been getting the public to finally be against the estate tax by removing that particular phrase from the political lexicon and replacing it with the more emotional, more personal death tax. In his book, originally published in January,
Hold on. Democrats want to tax you for dying. Death tax takes over 50% of a deceased's estate. Well, I'll be real. I think that we should not have the death tax or the estate tax. We shouldn't have income tax. We shouldn't have property tax. There should only be a sales tax. And again, I'm gonna plug myself. I plan on running for governor. We'll go over this at the end of this.
2007. Lutz says a clear but somewhat narrow majority of Americans today support eliminating the so-called estate tax, but more than 70% would abolish the death tax.
It's the same tax, but nobody really knows what an estate
Different
is.
packaging.
But they certainly know what it means to be taxed when you die.
I'd like somebody to get rid of the death tax. That's what I want. I don't want to get taxed just because I died. Yeah. You know, I just don't...
Who's hungry?
One food rebranding effort was so successful that by 2002, the National Environmental Trust started a campaign to save a previously ignored fish species from being eaten into extinction. In 1977, fish wholesaler Lee Lance took Patagonian toothfish and renamed it
Chilean sea bass, I believe.
because he knew no one would have toothfish for dinner.
I'd eat some toothfish.
So when people come to associate certain ideas with certain words, it's useful to come up with new words that evoke a more pleasant reaction. For example, a hospital may think that you wouldn't react well to hearing that a catastrophic blunder killed your wife and child during a cesarean delivery. So it's better to describe the anesthesiologist having turned the wrong knob and giving the mother a fatal dose of nitrous oxide as a therapeutic misadventure. At least St. Mary's Hospital in Minneapolis in 1982 thought this wording would be better.
Ooh.
3 weeks ago in Los Angeles, the surgeons killed the patient in a series of incidents that the pathologist called incredible stupidity and incompetence. It included slitting the patient's throat during surgery.
That's not killing someone, that's straight up murder. How would a doctor or anyone in the medical industry or anyone just alive not understand that slitting someone's throat will not end their life? And yes, I did say end their life. Could be considered a form of doublespeak, but that's what happened. It ended their life. The person who did it murdered the woman on the table. That's fucking terrible.
This was called a therapeutic misadventure.
William Lutz says the second kind of doublespeak is jargon, the specialized language of a trade or profession.
Yes.
It is useful and necessary to know jargon to communicate within your field, but whether it is doublespeak or not depends on where you use it. For example, describing your computer keyboard key to your friend as a catastrophically buckling compression column switch and actuator is unnecessary, but is an appropriate descriptor to use in a patent. After giving President Reagan a routine physical examination, Dr. Daniel Rouge said that previously documented decrement in auditory acuity and visual refractive error corrected with contact lenses were evaluated and found to be stable.
What?
That sounds a lot more impressive than saying the president's hearing and eyesight haven't changed since his last exam.
Where is the organoleptically detectable?
Organically detectable. Able to smell or taste. Used by a military specification MIL F 1499F, a recipe for fruitcake. Big words to overwhelm someone, to make them not question what's going on because, oh, it's so technical. You must have trained and know a lot more than I do about it, so I'll trust your professional insight.
And finally, William Lutz says the third type of doublespeak is gobbledygook, or bureaucratese. Basically, such doublespeak is a matter of piling on words, of overwhelming the audience with words. There are plenty of examples of politicians using bureaucratese when forced to comment on something that they really don't want to comment on, but a good example is NASA's ex-associate administrator Jesse Moore's performance in terms of the lexicon.
Yeah, I'm sure we can all think of multiple scenarios of this.
After the 1986 Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, Jesse Moore was asked if the performance of the shuttle program had improved with each launch. He answered, "I think our performance in terms of the liftoff performance and in terms of the orbital performance, we knew more about the envelope we were operating under, and we have been pretty accurately staying in that. And so I would say the performance has not by design drastically improved. I think we have been able to characterize the performance more as a function of our launch experience as opposed to it improving as a function of time."
I did not understand a word of what was said. I'd probably have to listen to it a couple more times, and if there's no ability to record, well, I guess that's kind of it. But that's I hate doublespeak so much, and I hate the people who use it.
Pretty much everyone will at some point dress up facts in some kind of way, even in our day-to-day lives. People use doublespeak because from a young age we learn that consequences exist.
So tell me, did you eat the chocolate cake?
That's a lie.
No, Mommy.
Just because someone uses doublespeak doesn't make them a crook, but when you don't quite understand what is being said about something important to you, it's good to ask, what exactly is this person saying? For example, you might be looking into investing and come across words like subprime mortgage or collateralized debt obligation. It would be good to clarify for yourself specifically what that means.
So the banks started filling these bonds with riskier and riskier mortgages. By the way, these risky mortgages are called subprime. So whenever you hear subprime, think shit.
Hold on, so mortgage bonds are dog shit. CDOs are dog shit wrapped in cat shit.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And something I've been wondering lately, what does detox mean? It seems there's hundreds of products promising to detox your body, but what exactly is being detoxed? Cadmium or mercury? Reactive oxygen species? Benzene? Wouldn't it be nice to know which toxins are being detoxified by which product, so I could make sure to drink this when I'm taking way too much aspirin, or take this for my excessive use of BHT-containing cosmetics? Maybe this detox tea product could help me detoxify metals or PCBs,
but it doesn't tell you
like
what
that,
it's detoxifying.
But I wouldn't know, because all I can find about the ingredients is that they are time-proven to help your body with the detoxifying process.
What the hell are you talking about?
The following thought experiment is brought to you by Brilliant.
Ad
In
time. His
1955,
ad
Tom
read.
Ewell was sitting on the floor of his house drinking champagne with Marilyn Monroe. The glass of champagne constantly produces gas bubbles on the bottom, which rise to the surface. Suddenly, a bout of appendix pain causes Ewell to drop his glass. What happens to the bubbles in the glass as it falls? A. New bubbles form and rise just as they did before. B. New bubbles form but they never start rising. C. All the rising bubbles fall to the bottom. Or D. All the rising bubbles remain fixed in place. Want to know the answer and explanation? Check out Brilliant.org, a website designed to make topics like physics, math, logic, and computer science fun and engaging. With daily challenges like the champagne glass one, and over 50 interactive courses that you can even access offline on your smartphone, you can learn wherever you are, whenever you have time. So if you want to dive into a course packed with stories, code writing, and interactive challenges, or keep your mind sharp with bite-sized daily challenges, check out Brilliant.org/WIL. And the first 200 people to follow my link will get 20% off the annual subscription.
This is a good video. I like it. But this is all of what is the legalese, right? The more legal speech you can use, the more you can use it against others who don't understand the definition of it. This is the same reason that doublespeak, like everything that he has mentioned, is used by politicians, by hedge funds, by pharmaceutical corporations. It all originates from the same source, the same group of people trying to, well, successfully lying to you so that way they can steal, murder you without any consequence to themselves. They can hide behind that and treat themselves as the victim. And it is a group of people who are truly evil, but no one wants to acknowledge that this group is truly evil because they use more doublespeak to make themselves seem as, righteous and or holy. And it's all lies. It's all lies built on top of lies and further shit, and it all works together. Because, yes, subprime mortgages, they're terrible, because it was... I can understand, like, reducing the interest rate on them. Honestly, I'd say we do away with interest rate altogether. There's no reason that we should be charging that to each other. It's just another way to make money from nothing, which is more theft, which is what they do. So, check them out. I'm definitely going to be reading both of those books that he mentioned. One of them was 1984, and the other one was, where was it? Where is it? Doublespeak. This book, William Lutz. I definitely need to read those books so I can be better able and prepared. But my plan is to run for governor of the state of Colorado. I have some stuff that I kind of need to go over. So my topics to be governor, first and foremost, and again, follow me at Coyote_Thunder on Twitch. We can go over more information. I like to, talk about this. I went to school for architecture and mechanical drafting. I do love architecture. I do like city planning. Also, having worked in finance, I understand it a lot better. So I want to create some things to make things fair. But first and foremost, I believe that as the state, we should be selling utilities. So there should be electricity, water, wastewater. Selling water, electricity, and natural gas. As a service, we will also handle waste management, which would be wastewater, garbage removal. Do what the Netherlands does, where we have some bins set up so that way you can just take your trash, throw it away, but it'll be separated out, right? One will be like food scraps and stuff. The other one will be cardboard, glass, aluminum, and then plastic. The other thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to create a Colorado Wealth Fund. So similar to how Norway has their sovereign wealth fund for the country of Norway, Colorado should have one that is invested in the state of Colorado. From there, it'd be 80% in the industries within Colorado. The other 20% would be on like the big index funds like the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and so forth. The other thing too, right, is I want to install a train system, a subway specifically, because we're Colorado, we get snow, and it's better to make sure that it is protected underground, so that way it can be used in the event of like storm cellars and shelters. We're pretty geologically stable area, right? We haven't had an earthquake since I think like 18 something. We can definitely look it up, right? The internet is right in front of us. We are on it right now. But we install a subway system, sliding doors to prevent the empty tracks and the platform from being connected to one another. We also have what is essentially shopping malls underground with those subway stations. Uh, and I want to end tax completely. Now, it only works really if we can also move back onto the gold standard, because inflation is just another method of them stating they're stealing our money, as is taxes. I hate taxes, but I also understand that some of it is needed, specifically if we're going to be offering all these services. So what I would say is end all tax, income tax, property tax, estate tax, uh, whatever other tax there is, right? The only tax that will exist will be a sales tax. Now, there will technically, we can call it a tax, but it'll be a business license. You still have to have one of those because you are then agreeing to do business within the state of Colorado. So you got to pay us, and it'll be good for a few years, right? Because sales tax is really all it'll come down to. But it'll be 0% on groceries, which won't include like junk food, like soda, candy, excessively sugary items, excessively processed items, uh, really junk food. So it has to be unprepared groceries, right? So this would be like potatoes, carrots, anything grown from the ground or animal products, right? Now those can be processed because you do still have to like butcher the animal, get it out and about, and you know it's good to go. But that would be 0%. 30% would be for alcohol, tobacco, those sugary items, and because it is also legal in the state of Colorado, which I will maintain would be on recreational or medical marijuana. That would be 30% tax. And then 10% on anything else. And to prevent any sort of like people from abusing loopholes, I want to use regular wording, which will mean anything that begins or anything that originates or completes in the state of Colorado. So say you purchase lumber from out of state, but you plan on using that lumber to build something within the state of Colorado, well, it completes in the state of Colorado. So therefore, it will have that 10% tax. Now we can of course adjust it because if President Trump decides to go with a national sales tax, like a value-added tax, a VAT tax, kind of like the European Union has, I'm fine with that, right? But say there's this 3%, then our sales tax would go to 7% to maintain a total of 10%. Now, if they go over, we'll figure all this out, right? But we got to know what's happening. I definitely want to implement a right to repair for everything, so that way we can end planned obsolescence. Now, installing the subway systems would be intra-city, and as he stated there, intra meaning within the state of, which within each city. So Colorado Springs would have its own subway station, Denver would have its own subway station, Pueblo would have its, and really all Grand Junction and Lyman or wherever, right? They will all have their own subway stations. We will also have intercity trains. So we can go from Pueblo to Colorado Springs to Larkspur, because really Larkspur is like an in-between point, more so than Castle Rock between Colorado Springs and Denver. And it would allow people to go from there and then just explore the nature, or to even go to the Renaissance Festival, right? Make it easier for that to happen. In turn, making them more money, also creating more sales tax. But for example, you could live in Pueblo, work in Denver, and then ride the train. I'd also include trains up to the ski resorts, because the other thing I want to do, and this is a very controversial part of it, so let me know what you think. Uh, Now, all of this is working together. Everything is in a positive feedback loop to create more of itself. But for Colorado residents and citizens of the United States of America, and as a primary resident, this means that you spend 9 months out of the year as Colorado being your primary residence, right? That's a school year or a full-term pregnancy on average, right? It can extend or decrease, but that's whatever. That's the average, right? 9 months Colorado resident. You get the have the opportunity to have up to 4 properties, up to 20 acres of land, and up to 1 apartment complex or building, right? Now, properties will be considered as a single family home, a duplex, triplex, and fourplex. Any combination, you can have 4 of those. You can also have up to 20 acres of land. So on, say, on 5 acres of land, you can have a single family home plus 3 fourplexes. You can also own up to 1 apartment complex or building, and that would be 5 plus doors in that single building, or multiple buildings, but all on the same land, all owned and rented out together. Multiple people can also own that. So say myself and yourself, we can both be owners of an apartment complex, and we would both just end up sharing the responsibility. Now, if you want more land than that, then of course you can lease it, but those leases require limits and terms underneath them, right? Now, those limitations are your life. For as long as you live, you would be considered the owner of that for farming purposes. Beyond that, no, we just need to make the cities better to return nature to heal nature, right? I also want to build some giant cathedrals, so mind you, we're doing some amazing things in the cities, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Now, as an incentive to home ownership, because here's some more things to that, right? So, as a Colorado resident and a citizen of the United States, you get all those things I just mentioned, those 6 things: 4 properties, 20 acres of land, and 1 apartment building or complex, right? Beyond that, if you are a permanent resident of the United States and a resident of the state of Colorado, you can own 1 property up to 5 acres of land. Likewise, if you are a citizen of the United States but not a primary resident of the state of Colorado, then same thing, you can own 1 property up to 5 acres of land. And if you are not a citizen of the United States of America and not a primary resident, then you can't own any land. You can rent, sure, go ahead, rent, but you cannot own. So that is the controversial aspect of it. Well, I'd say maybe this is a bit more controversial aspect of it. We will price cap properties, right? So as a quick example, right, a 4 bedroom, 3 bath house would be capped, and we're going to figure this out mathematically by living area, like, so the square footage of the living area, number of rooms, and to bathroom ratio, right? We'll figure out a mathematical structure for that, but as just a quick example, say that 4 bedroom, 3 bath house would be $75,000. Us as the state of Colorado, we can of course own more than that because it is the state and we are in this together, right? We self-govern ourselves. We don't let of elites or that clique of international bankers and hedge funds tell us what to do. But we as the state would offer those no interest loans to purchase those homes. This would allow the younger generations and those working in the service industry to own property, right? Which would also, working with the trains, would reduce the stress and shackling that we are currently under with cars. Now, I'm never going to get rid of cars or vehicles at all because they are the ultimate symbol of freedom. They are so useful for everything. But when it's your only option, it's no longer freedom. It is now a shackle that without it, you have no other option. So that $75,000 home, along with all that stuff in conjunction, what we'll do, right? Moving back to the Colorado Wealth Fund, we will match $75,000 home, $75,000 within that Colorado Wealth Fund. From there, 50% of income generated. This will be dividend payments and interest payments received. Half of that will be put into an account under you as the homeowner's name. Now, same thing, like apartment complexes won't have that, right? That won't, but these other 5 will, right? The 4 properties and up to 20 acres, but we'll also limit the cost per acre to $500. I'm sticking with that, $500 per acre. So, for example, of that 75,000, say you make from that 75,000 that is invested into the Colorado Wealth Fund, say $1,000 is made. 50% of that will be put into an account that you will receive tax-free when you sell. So you have to sell for $75,000, but you'll also get all income that was generated tax-free. Or you can use that money when you reach retirement age of age 50. And say in the event, here's an example, right? I own that house, 4 bedroom, 3 bath, 75,000. I have paid it off. So now at this point, I just have to handle my utilities and maintenance of the property. No other fees or any of that associated behind it. Say when I also retire, I don't use any of that money. So when I pass away, two things are going to happen. Either I will it to my children, and then they can decide to sell it, or so here's what's going to happen either way, right? So if I have a home and say I pass away, my wife also passes away, unfortunate, we're gone at the same time, boating accident, right? Whatever. Or old age, we'll say that, right? So I can then will it to my children, and what will happen with that money is it will be split equally, however I have it willed, just like I have the house willed. Multiple people can own the home, but it'll still count as a home towards them. So I give it to my children. That 75K resets. That money is then divided up amongst the children. Say I have four, they each get 25%, and then all of them being the owners, well, it'll be put into one account and then divided equally among the four as far as income goes. That's the reset. Likewise, if I sell that home to someone else, I have to sell it to them for the 75K. I get that full amount of the 75K plus the income generated. That person who now owns the home will have that account reset, so that $75,000 will then be put into an account, or the 50% of income will be put into the account, which they can then use when they sell or they hit retirement age. And if I have no children, I have no one to leave my stuff to, well, unfortunately, the state would then take it, because there's really nothing that can be done if I pass away and I decided to leave it to no one. Now, we will reach out to the next of kin, so this would be like siblings or stuff, and hey, would you like to take this over? You'll get the house, you'll get the money, right? And then you can decide what you want to do there. But if we cannot contact someone, and I would say 5 years, you got to get on this, right? Then the state would simply enough put that money back into the wealth fund, so that full 75K would still be invested to the house, but all income would then be put into the Colorado Wealth Fund to help that grow until the home is sold. Once it is then sold to the new owner, then that person would be receiving the money. It's complex, I get it, but we can go over it. We can go over some graphs and everything like that. What else is there? Let's see. Install the subways, the trains to the ski resorts. Right. And I will also add on to that one for the property ownership. Only natural persons can own property. Now that, again, property means single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Apartment buildings or complexes can be owned by entities, but only living, breathing humans like myself and yourself, no corporations, no LLCs, none of that, trusts, none of that can own property. None of it. That's the controversial aspect of it. But this would definitely return ski resorts from being Airbnb voids where no one lives and people only really stay during the winter, and it's very difficult for people to even get up there because it's dangerous, right? It'll turn them back into mountain towns. And then with the trains, right, there will be trains that can move people from, say, Colorado Springs up to some ski resorts, or from Denver up to some ski resorts. There will also be the ability for goods to take the train up the mountain. Because there'll be two different types. We'll have the trains that are passenger trains, and then we'll have the freight style trains. And I don't mean like heavy freight. It'll be food goods and stuff, and it'll be provided because us as a state, you and I in this together, will also take over any failing hydroelectric dams. Now, of course, the way that's going to work is that we as the state will take those hydroelectric dams, we will repair them, and then we will sell the electricity to the people, right? Uh, I also want to install a nuclear generator so that way we can have more electricity. I'd also like to put more solar panels on people's homes that you will own, as well as batteries. Preferably any roof that is south facing will receive them, or east west will have to cover both sides, because as the sun comes in from the east, it'll hit the morning, then at noon it'll come down, and then in the evening it'll get the afternoon sun. But you're getting energy throughout the day. Versus south facing, you're getting energy from, well, as long as the sun is moving across the horizon. And batteries for energy storage. For that, I'm not talking like lithium ion batteries. Sure, they are energy dense, they don't take up much space, but they're also more dangerous, right? Like you've seen the Tesla fires, which is why I'm against electric vehicles. But I digress. This way, we will be fully energy independent. We can handle it ourselves. We will be hardened against attacks. We will be able to handle extreme weather events. I also want to end weather modification, which is a real thing. They talk about it. Cloud seeding, HAARP, which is a high altitude radio waves, right, that are used to either disperse clouds or can be used to push clouds because it's just waves, multiple little waves pushing lots of water. What else is there? Definitely want to hire the best and brightest of the American people. Bring you here. I also have answers to fix the hospital system, right? So what we will do, and again, I'm saying this as a Christian. I read the Bible, right? It's even right here, the 1599 Geneva Bible. It's the one I'm reading. I'm currently in the Old Testament. I've just reached Exodus because it's old-timey speech. It's taking me a minute. But I wish to create really I want to end the need for insurance, and the way to do so, and again, this is entirely my opinion, but hospitals should be ran as nonprofits. A nonprofit should not make any extra money for like shareholders or anything like that. So instead, what we will do is we will require all hospitals to have their prices readily and easily available for everything. At this point, we should know how much everything costs, right? So say an MRI machine. MRI machine costs. So it costs between $150 to $3 million. And then how long does an MRI machine last? Around 10 years. So what we can do is we can figure out the cost for 10 years of running that MRI machine. Divide it up amongst however many uses. Because if it's just good for 10 years and it's a constantly functioning item, we should know. Just like we know how much saline costs, we know how much a room per night costs. Like Singapore, they got that shit kind of figured out. There's a lot I want to do, so check me out. Coyote_Thunder on Twitch. We can go over more of this, some of the plans that I have written up. And yeah, like I said, I want to build 3 giant cathedrals, one in Pueblo, one in Colorado Springs, and then one in Denver. I also want them to have their own distinct architectural style, kind of how France did it, where there's allows for medium density, specifically within the first half-mile radius of the train stations. Subway stations will be medium density. Sure, cars can still travel through, but it'll just make it a little bit more inconvenient for a car because there won't be as much parking. The parking will be at the very edge of that half-mile radius, right? So from the train station, you can walk 1.5 miles out. So from the train station counted as the center, half mile out, in the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, there will be giant parking garages, so you can park your car and then walk throughout the city, right? Likewise, from the half mile to the 1 mile marker will be slightly decreased density. So this would allow for, say, 3-bed fourplexes, triplexes, duplexes, and it would just continue to go down until you get out from the to the 1.5 mile mark. We can make this work. We can do this together. And those cathedrals, like I said, will be inspired by the design, right? So the 3 design aspects we'll be going with will be Gothic, which I say will be for Colorado Springs, Art Deco, Art Deco architecture will be for Denver, right? Look at this. Art Deco, that's for Denver. And then Baroque architecture will be for Pueblo. Roman Baroque. See? Baroque. That will be Pueblo. Bothic. Brothic. And then Gothic architecture, of course, will be for the city of Colorado Springs. Gothic architecture. It's not really Gothic. See, Gothic. That's Victorian. We'll get all this figured out, right? But that'll be the main design constraint, along with like height wise to preserve the views of the mountain for Colorado Springs. While Denver and Boulder are further from the mountains, they can build slightly higher. But we can make this work. So check me out. Any financial support is very much appreciated. It'll work towards helping me with my political campaign. And yeah, Coyote Thunder out for this video.